Hey
All right.
everyone,
Well,
how's every, how are you doing today, Cesar?
I'm doing good, William. It's having some technical difficulties earlier, but I think I'm grateful just to be blessed with another day. So that's always a good start. And and just enjoying the New Year's. So far it's I think it's been kind of we've had a few winters already here. Winter storms, one major one last week, and now it's been just kind of steady. So we hope it stays like that. But I know Arizona doesn't struggle with that. So
Let me tell you though, it has been really cold here. I mean, it got down to like 58 the other day. It was pretty
mm.
rough. I'm just joking with you. Whenever the temperature drops into the 30s, because it does get into the 30s at night, my kids are like, "Is it gonna
Mhm.
snow?" I'm like, "No, high's supposed to be 68 tomorrow. Sorry, not gonna happen."
Jeez.
So, how was your? I mean, for everyone watching and listening, we're have my good friend Cesar from Growing Up Catolico here, and we're going to talk about how Christmas time, the spirit of Christmas, should be something that we go through all year long, really. So I guess let's start. How was your Christmas? How's the family?
Um, I think for the most part, yeah, family is good. I have, for those that maybe haven't followed, I have a wife, and she's going to be 11 months this month now in January. And um, we we split our Christmases. So part of the Mexican tradition, we have Christmas Eve, where we celebrate. We open our gifts at 12. We pray a rosary usually, and that's kind of bringing the concept of welcoming the new baby Jesus in our lives. And then the next day we visit another family. So we've been kind of splitting, but either family we visit New Year's Eve, or I'm sorry, Christmas Eve, we always do a prayer, either a rosary um, or if anything, like there's another booklet, I forgot what it's called, where it's kind of reviving the story of Christmas, and it includes a little bit of prayers and things like that. So um, for the most part, I think it was good. I could say it's great just because um, we didn't have church, so I think that was the missing part for us this year, just not being able to go to mass. And I know some people were fortunate enough to go, but having a baby and just it's a risk we've been kind of having to take care of just because of having COVID before and all that.
Sure. We tried to go to mass on Christmas Eve, but my we're still having mass and everything in my diocese of Tucson right now,
Mm.
but the attendance is limited. So my parish is limited to 150 people.
Mm.
It could seat like what's it, like 5 or 600 or something like that. But we
Oh,
got
wow.
there. We were running late. We got there 5 minutes before mass was to start, and they were at capacity, so we couldn't make it. But
Wow.
we tried. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
But luckily, a friend and I at our parish, we got together and we started streaming the masses, at least one mass a week. And so he streamed the later mass that night, so we watched it on Facebook. So it was
Oh, nice.
we still did something, so that was cool. Yeah, but as far as
That's what counts.
exactly my Christmas, I mean, we go to my mother-in-law's normally on Christmas Eve. Then my parents come over for Christmas. But yeah, it's a good time just to hang out. We talk about the year, talk about goals for the upcoming year, what we want to accomplish, and yeah, it's always a good time. Even though my family moved here from Los Angeles a few years ago, with the schedules, it's hard to get together, even though they're fairly close. So it's good just to get together. So that was good.
Yeah,
And
I think usually family, or I'm sorry, holidays are always a good time to reset. Being able to meet with the family and kind of try to let bygones be bygones.
right,
Especially if, like you mentioned, your family lives close. But if you guys don't see each other, it's hard. But I think that's the time to just wave past like the presents and all that, and just look at the main focus, which is being able to see family. Because I know a lot of people this year might not have that opportunity anymore. Either they lost family members due to COVID or any other illness, or just maybe they lost communication just because of personal differences. And I think that's always the worst part, is when you have someone that's living and they almost become, in a sense, they claim they're dead to you, or vice versa, and it just completely stops. Both of you are existing, but yet you're not. Nobody's living. So it's good that family's around still.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a reminder, especially with everything going on this year, really what's important. Because
Hmm.
a lot of times our schedules get in the way. We get busy with this, that, whatever, and then sometimes we forget what's in front of us, I guess. And it was just a good
Right.
reminder this year of not only the what role family plays, what role the church plays in our lives, especially when I mean, let's face it, this year everyone's been impacted one way or another as far as mass goes.
Hmm.
You said your diocese doesn't currently have mass at the moment, public mass,
They
or
do.
okay,
They do. There's a lot of churches around that have what you have to do is like call ahead of time to schedule, or
okay,
to save a spot, because the one mass that or I'm sorry, the church that I attend is St. John the Baptist in Joliet, Illinois, and currently you would have to call ahead or online, to like schedule an attendance, and that's what I think I've struggled personally, because we could go. We can kind of go how we've kind of we were doing at the beginning of this year after the baby was born. Was my wife would go one weekend, I would go the other weekend, and so forth. But now that our baby is very attached to my wife, like she would get panicky, and if she leaves, and so it's hard to go separately. And I don't want to just be the one going, but also, I've kind of fallen off going just because it becomes a habit as well. So as much as we would go to church every weekend, that was like the time that almost became a habit, a routine. By not going, it also becomes a routine. So I think this year it helps me to restart, because having just the focus on work and health and all that, I've forgotten about like the spiritual health in that sense. Going
mhm,
to mass, making that routine again, rather than just, oh, I'm gonna try to go, and I think be a little bit more proactive. So if I can be if I can reply to someone's response on or post on Twitter or whatever, then I have the same. That's the same time I could have done to use for registering or my family or myself on for mass or something like that. So I think that's where one of my goals would be.
okay. Yeah, I can see that being tricky though, because it's that extra step. Whereas before, you just got in the car, you drove off, and now you got to make sure you
Mhm.
called ahead of time. What kind of notice do you have to give?
So for us, it's depends on the church, because there's a church right down, probably I would say 10 minutes from us in Rockdale. That's another little town, and I was looking for confession, because I wanted to go to confession, and I had called another church and they never got back to me. And he is, I assumed it was a priest just by how he told me, the way he spoke and told me about like the what do you call it, confession times in church and all that.
Mhm.
But he said they have Latin mass, so that was kind of cool because I've never been to a Latin mass, and so he told me there's mass daily, and you only have to register for, I think, the afternoon mass. The morning mass you can go, but they're in Latin. So I want to schedule. I want to set a goal for this weekend to just wake up really early, as I already do, and go there. But mostly it's been either calling on the phone, or mostly or on what do you call it, online,
Okay,
and just registering yourself.
okay. Let me get your thoughts on this. I mean, we're talking about keeping the spirit of Christmas alive all year long. What are some things our listeners can do to keep that going, in your opinion?
I think to keep Christmas alive is to almost believe, um, why is it that you celebrate mass or celebrate Christmas in the first place? Because it's a birth of Jesus Christ, the man. And a little bit more into that is that, every day can almost be like Christmas, as much as every day could be, I think, a birthday. You know, it's every day is someone's birthday. Um, and so I'd say that I think looking at what is it that keeps you away from being away from your family, because Christmas is usually been known to have family gatherings and all
Mhm.
that. So I would say that like, how are you? How often are you communicating with people? And I think we have social media, so that's a big giant step for us for being able to talk to people nowadays. But how many days, or I'm sorry, how many times do we actually call people and just say, "Hey, how's it going?" You know, and it almost feels like when you talk to someone on the phone that you haven't talked to in forever, it sounds almost awkward because like you don't do that anymore, you know. And so I would say communication with family, you know, um, as much as you can take time to buy a present. I think that can be also time to use to talk to someone, even if it's maybe a simple text message. I mean, nowadays there's like the app WhatsApp or a Facebook Messenger where you can record, or even like if you have an iPhone where you can record voice notes or
Mhm.
voice messages, and you might not be able to talk to the person, but at least you're having some kind of verbal communication. So I would say communication with family is a big one
And you
for
can do
me, at
that.
least.
You can do that in Messenger as well. You can do the voice messages and send them over Messenger. You can do them
Mm-hmm.
up to 1 minute. I think it's important what you said because I think as a society, I think we've forgotten how to talk.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds dumb, but I mean, we get on these guys, and instead of calling, we send a text message, or we go on Facebook and we do a message. Very rarely do we pick up, like you said, and actually make that phone call. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a very personal connection to people, especially if they're like shut in and
Right.
they don't drive or anything. It's that, oh my gosh, it's that personal connection. Whereas a text message doesn't convey that because you could lose that meaning over a text message.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I was gonna say, like, I think also understanding each other, like trying to figure out each other's feelings, because too, I think this year has been really difficult with expressing views and expressing oneself other before being either labeled as something or attacked at something. And
mhm.
this is how it splits family members. You know, I don't know if you've had any experience with that this year. I mean, having the pandemic, having the elections, um, having the vaccines and all that stuff being in talks. Like if you've had any controversial, you know, maybe talks with family members or even friends about this.
I would say my parents, they know the virus is real, but at the same time, my my mom's of the opinion that if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. So I'm not going to wear a mask and all this other stuff. So um, I know at the beginning she was almost like conspiracy theory type. I don't. She's
Oh,
not quite that way anymore, but she's definitely still a little skeptical though with the numbers. But overall though, I haven't had family that's done that. I've had customers when I was in banking. I left banking back in September. But
mm-hmm.
before then, I had some customers flat out who said this whole thing is fake. It's to bring in communism and the new world order and all this other stuff. I was like, hold on, just hold on. I
Mm-hmm.
can't comment on any of this at work right now, so we just got to cut this conversation off right now. Um, Family members know. I think because early on, my aunt and uncle in Dallas, they contracted the virus fairly early in the pandemic. It was in April, and they had to go to the hospital a couple times in that 2 week period because their oxygen levels dropped so low. So I think that was, I think if that hadn't happened, maybe something would have been different as far as some family views. But because of that,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't want to say it was helpful because God forbid anyone gets it, but
Right.
it kind of kept it in check a little bit. Like this is real. You should still take it somewhat seriously anyway.
That's
But
true. Yeah,
yeah,
and I guess with talking about family, how's your domestic church doing?
we're doing well. School just started back up today, and of course, it's all virtual. And if anyone hears kids in the background, it's because their class just ended, so they're excited. But they're all doing well. My wife is doing well. She's at work at the moment, and yeah, everyone's man. It's amazing how fast kids grow, man. So hold your little one close because it's not gonna be little for long. My
Yeah,
little
it's true.
my little one, my firstborn, Brian, he's 12 now, and he's about, I don't know, 5'6".
Wow.
So they grow
Hmm.
so fast. No, everyone's doing well though. They're doing their best through all this stuff. It's hard for kids. They miss their friends and
Yeah.
everything. And luckily, there's things online they can do to still connect with each other. But hopefully, it's through soon because I know they definitely miss playing with them in person.
Yeah, no, and I think it's good that that you mentioned that with school for the kids because like they're not having any really physical interaction with their friends, and I think that makes it really hard. And on top of that, for the parents, like it makes it really hard even to stay at home sometimes
Right.
because their jobs are either demanding for them to stay at home or to come back to work, but the daycare or whoever was taking care of the child now can't do that because either they might have had COVID or they're no longer providing that help. And so that kind of puts parents at a difficult situation of who is it that they can, who's the next caregiver for them, because parents either have to continue working,
Mhm.
but now either they're working from home um, or they're working longer hours or whatever the situation is. And sometimes it's even harder when you have both parents work different hours and all that. So I really applaud for those parents that have kids and they're managing it because I can imagine that it's not an easy situation um, and even for the kids, trying to have some type of personal liberty without feeling, I guess you can say, restrained because now they're at home
Right.
basically like all day and there's nothing really much going on outside, especially depending I guess where you live. But I know some high schools and middle school sports are canceled or on are pending, and I think that makes it really challenging too.
Yeah, I mean, it is. My son has he's on the robotics team at his school, so I mean, they still
Mm,
do that, but they have to build this robot with social distancing, and it's kind of hard when one person has to go in do something then back up so the other person go in do something, when last year they're just all in there getting the robot done ready to go.
right.
And you know how kids go. I mean, even how I am, you just want to get in, get it done, and get it going.
Hmm.
But I think the kids understand, though, at least mine do. They understand. It's, yes, hard, but it's, they definitely understand. But on to what you were in regard to what you were saying, as far as picking up that phone and calling people, another way to
Hmm.
keep that spirit of Christmas going. I mean, just practicing mercy, understanding.
Hmm.
Jesus said, what you do to the least of these, you do unto me. And during the holidays, that's a time when we tend to, and it's a good thing, don't get me wrong. Like, okay, we need what we do for someone doesn't have as much as we do. Well, it's definitely something we need to do, in my opinion, all year long, especially now.
Yeah,
If we're calling people during the holidays, what's keeping us from calling someone next weekend, a
that's
weekend after
true.
that, or buying someone a bottle of water that's on the street corner, whatever the case is, just some act of mercy. Just let people know that, hey, you're loved, you're cared for. Jesus loves you, etc. I think that's also a good way to keep it going.
Yeah, I think you know, I think I mean, just being merciful, but even including being humble.
Yeah.
Um, I think those go hand in hand most of the time. And you know, like you mentioned earlier, like what's keeping you from calling that person when knowing we spent hours on Netflix, we binge watch, we can name every, scene of a episode, excuse me, of an episode or a series or whatever, but yet we don't even know what's that person that person doing. And so I think knowing also when you need to back down out of a maybe like you mentioned, like having like your mom and having how conspiracy theories are going around and all that. And I think it's very important to just know that if it's getting out of hand, just set a boundary.
Mhm.
I think for the most part, when it comes to situations like that. But um, when it comes to our our families, especially our spouses, is what I was looking for. Um, how are we showing mercy to them? Are you helping that person around the house when they're working more now, more hours than maybe you're used to? Like, I know with this pandemic, for myself, I started to learn more about more with cooking and how to just experiment, how to just enjoy. Because I love eating food, don't get me wrong,
Me too.
but I
It
think it's
shows.
right. But I think it's even better when you know how to help your spouse out, um, and doing little acts of kindness like that. Showing that person why you're, you know, you care for that person. So being merciful can be applied to your spouse. It can be applied to your job. Like, if you see someone that I think is struggling at work, uh, why don't you maybe help them out? If you know this person is struggling and um, they don't know who else to ask, I think that also helps to show mercy in regards to being able to maybe apply yourself of where you were, when you started and helping out, or maybe just talking to that person, getting to know your coworkers at least. Hey, how's it going? Instead of just kind of, walking by, maybe just taking a minute of your time just to say hi, checking on someone because you just never know that person might need some help, and maybe that hello or whatever could be a good lifesaver for them.
Right. Now, when I was at the bank, and this is the part I really miss about the bank,
Hmm.
is all my coworkers, I would go, and don't get me wrong, I'm not the most extroverted person. I consider myself more of an introvert. People think
Hmm.
that's funny when they see me do stuff like this that we're doing now. But
Same.
I would go around and just, I would get to know my coworkers. Say, how are you doing today? What'd you do this weekend? And then, start up a conversation because when you're working with them, I mean, honestly, you're with those people more than you are with your own family.
Hmm.
So you have to kind of get to know them a little bit, not only for the working relationship, but just to make work fun, bearable. But inevitably, what would happen is I would say, they would ask me, what I like to do outside of work and say, well, I like to podcast, I like to write, etc. And they would start asking, like, what things do you talk about? What things do you write about? And the thing is like it's an evangelism opportunity. I didn't go up to them and say, hey, do you know Jesus Christ? No, I didn't do
Right.
that. I did a long time ago when I was Protestant. I didn't do that now. But but I built that trust. And I said, this is what I do in my spare time. This is my passion. The bank
Hmm.
pays for this passion. This is what I'd love to do. And they see that passion and they go on and check and say, okay, I saw that you write this. What do you mean by that? And it's just the conversation. Get them to know that there's something out there that's more than what this is.
Hmm.
Um, and there's so many ways to do that. And that's just one way I did it. And it was never something intentional. It was honestly more of a selfish thing. Okay, I want work to be fun, so I need to get to know the people I work with because I'm with them more than I'm at home. And inevitably, they would ask questions. They would follow me maybe on social media and say, "Oh, he wrote this. He interviewed this person. What do they talk about?" And it just is more questions, and they start asking and asking and asking. And I think that's a good way to keep Christmas going as well. Because just like Christ came into the world to save all of us, not just some of us.
Hmm.
No one's exempt from that. He wants everyone to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. And how are they going to come to knowledge of the truth if no one tells them? And sometimes it starts with our actions.
Right. No, I think um, going with the topic of evangelizing, I mean, we we might have talked about this in the other podcast or the other episode, where we maybe want to help invite people over to the church, but I think maybe that's doing a lot sometimes. Like we want to have this perfect idea of how to invite people over, but um, evangelizing doesn't necessarily have to be evangelizing like, oh, I need to try to convert that person or whatever, because it's not. It's almost like we make it a maybe a personal goal, which really, if you're trying to evangelize the whole world, it's going to be very hard. I mean, Jesus Christ was alive, 2000 plus years ago, and still not a lot of people believe in him. So I would say like evangelize humanity in a good way, because we have so many religions and so many faiths and all this stuff and different ideologies, but yet I think the main goal is how do we evangelize people to be better people? Because by doing that, we're being more of a servant leader rather than just a leader. We act like Jesus, where Jesus Christ did a lot of things, and he asked others, his disciples, to follow and do the same. But when it comes to coworkers, I think it's very beneficial to build your rapport with them, build trust by I think just in checking in with them on whatever is going on, and when they ask like, what do you do, like, oh, I do this on my side, it's my just for fun. um I think it's like like as podcasters, I think nobody knows our podcast unless we say something about it or we tell people about it. Otherwise it's just going to be in the air, and unless by people start putting in like keywords, and they'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
But um I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that we kind of have to let people know what we do. Um, and that's only by talking to people. The whole goal is being able to talk. Um, Evangelizing doesn't have to necessarily be through like word of mouth either. It could also be by actions. What are you
Yep.
doing after work, or maybe when you're not working, to help your cause or help with Jesus? I always like to think of the question, and I know it's kind of been cliched, but what would Jesus do? Um, Helping out someone's, at least here, like clean their yard, clean the snow when it comes around. Um, checking in with your neighbors. That's, I think, showing a little bit more of what is it that you're evangelizing, which is my your Christian, Catholic, whatever faith you believe in. And I think that puts a lot of good good merits on your part, as compared to those that are trying to maybe record themselves doing something good just for the likes, as they call themselves, the
It's my pet
YouTubers,
peeve, man.
influencers. I know. It's like, just do it, like Nike. Just hopefully I don't get sued for that. So,
And I
but
saw, sorry to cut you off. I saw a
no,
meme
you're fine.
about that the other day. It said good deeds 20 years ago, and it was someone giving someone food. Good deeds now, that same person giving someone food with a selfie stick. I don't know,
Hmm.
it's just a pet peeve of mine. Do the good work because it's the good work, not for what it's going to give you. That's business.
Right.
If you do it for what it's going to bring you, it negates the. I mean, there's a time and place for it. If someone were to catch you doing that, that's fine. But don't go out of your way saying, I'm not going to do it unless it's getting recorded. Wrong
Right.
attitude. But you talked about evangelism, about, it starts with actions. And Mother Teresa said, if you want to change the world, start with your family.
Hmm.
And so I know your little one is young, but for those out there who have children, there's a mission field right there. Is our
Yes.
children. We have. How often are we saying, I want to do something for the Lord, but we have children? It's our job as parents to catechize and teach the faith to our children. That's our responsibility. The church is there to help us. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the church. It's the catechism says the parents, even the Bible says, teach a child the way they should go. So it's
Mhm.
our job as parents. If we have children, we should be evangelizing every second of every day. And we're
Right.
going to mess up sometimes. Don't get me wrong. But
Hmm.
I mean, we're human. We're going to mess up, right?
Right.
But we should still try to do something every day. Rather than say a prayer. If here's some bad news, let's say a prayer for this person, or
Hmm.
say that not everyone who's asking for money on the street is well off, because a lot of them aren't. It's not our
Right.
place to judge what they do with the money. That's between them and God. Our job is to be faithful to what God's calling us to do. Just instill some
Hmm.
of that stuff into our children.
Yeah. Just wanted to add a little bit into that. I think I remember a lady when I was, I guess you can say, a little bit more involved with the church, when I was doing more retreats and stuff, and I was helping out, and I would see this lady in a lot of groups. She was in this group of prayer group, evangelizing group, choir group, and like all these different groups around the church. And I'm thinking, wow, this lady has a lot of time on her hands to do everything, And I'm thinking that's great. But then um, I would notice that she would get involved, and sometimes she would just disappear, go off the radar for like maybe weeks and stuff, and then come back and then get him super involved and do all these things. And I spoke to a few friends, including a few priests, and I'm thinking, I was asking them like, what happened to this lady? I haven't seen her, as she was doing this and doing all these things, and just went off the radar. Like it's like this pattern. And they told me that she had um, a rough background with her family, her domestic family. She would do all these things, and in order to kind of relieve herself, that because her family wasn't really involved with the church and so forth, it's like she ran away from that. She wanted to escape that reality and get involved with people that liked her, and just being able to give. But I think that's dangerous, because one of my friends told me like that's not always a good thing either, because we want you to work on your church, your domestic church. And even if your kids don't believe in God or believe in the Catholic Church, but if you are a good parent, like that eventually will either um, help the child understand that you weren't there, like you were never trying to like pressure them to join the church or whatever, but your part was to be a good parent, and um, you practiced what you preached. So you did what you were supposed to do. You prayed and all that stuff. But this lady just had no control over her life at home, and this was kind of her escape. And I think we have to kind of balance that. If you have kids and they're maybe struggling with you for whatever reason, like I would say look into sources online. I know Ascension Presents has a lot of good stuff with how to manage with like teenagers and just kids and spouses, especially if your spouse is from a different religion or doesn't believe in God and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But I would say like attend your family at home as well, rather than just the church, because the church has multiples of people helping. But if you're not helping your church, nobody else is going to do it, and then that's how things get really bad and so forth. So yeah.
Well, and luckily we have so many mass. Well, normally, let me preface that we have so many mass times available where you can go to one mass time, and then you can spend the rest of the weekend at home working on home things. So, but yeah, good stuff. So, give me 1 second here. Sorry, guys.
Mhm.
Oh, my internet froze. There we go. Okay, good. The wonders of technology.
I know mine too.
So,
That's why I was like playing around with it.
so any other words or words of wisdom you think that we could take from us on how to live Christmas year round?
Um, I think for one is, what are you doing with your spiritual life? Where are you at? With that. As much as we like to work out physically and all this stuff, I think what are we doing to work out our spiritual strength? How do we get stronger? I would say check yourselves out with that. You know yourself, so making an assessment with yourself and with God. Um, Ask Him for guidance and forgiveness. If you can't go to church, they always say if you can't go to confession, it's not the best, but talk to Him. Still try to do your best with seeking forgiveness and all that. And I would say attend your family church, your domestic church, because that's the roots. If you have family, it doesn't have to be a spouse or kids. It could be brother, sister, um, even your friends, like people that are in your clique or in your small circle. And I would say also, uh, as much time as much as you spend online searching for things or arguing with people or just putting your perspective on that on whatever, because I know it's hard. I mean, Twitter's there, and I know what I see that. So, but I would say take that time also to introspect or check yourself as well, with your mental health. So I think spiritual health, mental health, and your social health um, are like my top three. I would say to end on my part, just because those are the things that I've been seeing a lot. And if we destroy those three things, everything else kind of falls apart. So I think practice Christmas like every day and show mercy to yourself and others.
Amen. And you're still right about social media. I can't tell how many times that I'm going to check this one thing, and 20 minutes later, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I got sucked in. I got sucked in
Yep.
here. But yeah, but it's a new year, and everyone likes to do these New Year's resolutions. Let's do some New Year goals.
Hmm.
Um, let's read scripture daily. Let's pray daily. I mean, you mentioned Ascension Press. Father Mike Smits has a new podcast where he's reading the Bible to you through the year. All you have to do
Oh,
is
nice.
listen, and he's reading it to you, and you get through the whole Bible in a year. There's so many things that we can do out there to not to grow spiritually and keep that spirit of Christmas. That honestly, it's up to us, because there's all those resources as are out there: podcasts, YouTube videos, the scriptures themselves. I mean, there's different devotionals out there. I just got this one from Ave Maria in the mail the other day,
Oh, nice.
called My Other Self. It's a classic book that they've kind of revised. That's the cool thing about being a podcaster and blogger. Sometimes you get free books in the mail. There's a little
I
tip
need to
there.
hang out with you more.
A little tip there. But yeah, I would say read the Bible, pray, and like you said, practice those works of mercy, and you'll never know whose life you're going to help change. Because it only takes one
That's
person.
true.
It only takes one person, and it's a ripple effect.
Yep.
All right, man. So it's good talking with you again.
You as well, William. Thank you. I mean, I enjoy being on just on another episode and being able to talk to you. And I think that's more than anything. I know we have technical issues sometimes for myself, but I'm glad that we have other sources of being able to connect. Um, and I think just in general, it's good to network and create friendships, even though I haven't
Yep.
seen you. But at least we're still connecting somehow, because through the grace of God, we both, have a podcast, and that's what allowed us to connect each other or to connect with each other. And I know there's other people out there that are listening. And more than anything, if you're thinking about something, with I think like when it comes to a project like a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever it is, or even creating your own business, like I would say, really think about it and do it. Um, it's fun, but also it comes rewarding because I get to at least be on top of my spiritual part. Like, okay, I know I'm struggling, but that means I need to start getting really into it because I can't preach what I don't practice. I have to really practice what I preach, and I'm a sinner, and I feel like because of that, that keeps me humble.
Yeah, and I've met so many people, and I tell my wife this all the time, that know so much more than I ever will. And so that's a humbling thing in itself. Um, like I can't, the one time I've been lucky enough on this podcast to talk to people like Steve Ray, Jeff Cavins, and Scott Hahn, and talking to those guys, dude, like they're up here, I'm like down here, you know.
Oh, geez, I'm like way below that, man.
But no, it's a humbling thing, and it's just
It
it's a reminder though that no matter where you are, is that we're brothers and sisters in Christ, and we're there to help each other to heaven. That's all we're trying to do with all this, you know.
Yeah, and just I guess my other just to add another thing is don't let your egos get in the way, because I think
Absolutely.
I've seen a lot of that, and including myself, and I think when we want to be right, we got to learn how to be right correctly, and we want to be wrong, we got to learn from that. And egos can destroy your families and yourself. So I wouldn't say that with Christmas. Let your ego sometimes go along with the water, and don't let it turn into a storm.
Right. Absolutely. Well, before we let you go, why don't you tell everyone where they could listen to your podcast?
So for me, I'm available on let's see, it's either on Apple or Google Play, Spotify as Growing Up Catolico, and on the other website I have is anchor.fm diagonal Growing Up Catolico as well, and Twitter at Godspeed Amigos, and Gmail, growingupcatholico@gmail.com. So so far I'm very, very small right now, but through the grace of God, I know that with people like William that are going to help us to grow and to help each other grow as well. Because my goal is that my challenge is having both languages, having Spanish and English listeners. So my goal is to like really overcome those challenges by something that a lot of people don't really do, especially with the podcast. So I want to be a little bit of that. I guess you can say a little bit of that mix going around.
All right. Well, check it out, everyone. He has some great stuff on there. He's interviewed some awesome people who've also been on my show, so you'll enjoy it. All right, man. God bless you. You have a good day. Okay.
You as well, William. Thank you.